Welcome to the Book of I Am. I am Janaea Lynn, your host, and here I explore identity as it emerges, reaches usefulness, collapses, and reorganizes. I'm interested in systems of meaning, how they form, hold, and eventually fail. I pay particular attention to the in between moments when certainty drops away and identity is no longer clear. This is a space for turning inward toward what was always sought externally. This is the Book of I Am. So today, episode 2, I'm talking about why identity keeps operating after belief expires. And so the core claim here is identity lags behind meaning. When belief completes its function, identity continues to run the old pattern. The problem that we find ourselves living inside of is I no longer fit the old framework, but I still look for myself inside it. For example, let's say that an old relationship has sort of run its course and consciously you know that the relationship is no longer good for you. It's no longer where you need to be. But for some reason, you still keep comparing all of the new possible partners to that one partner. So even though you know that being inside of that relationship isn't where you need to be, you still keep sort of shaping your new experiences around that old one. Something that used to orient you is gone and you feel sort of displaced. You believe something new, yet your behavior hasn't quite caught up. You keep trying to recreate who you were instead of locating who you are now. And so I think this is something common in human beings. Relationships is only one area. It's just easy to talk about relationships, but you could put this in the context of religion. You could put this in the context of your career field, for example. So let's take a topic of the queer community. So I myself am bisexual, and I have found uh, a late in life person who has come out that as I look at content of people who are in the lesbian community, I find that they will often embody or seek to embody heterosexual norms. For example, there is the heterosexual norm that the man who is the masculine partner is supposed to do typical things like open the door, take out the trash, be the breadwinner, etc. And those expectations have already proven themselves harmful just in the straight community. And yet they are still ruling a large part of the queer community. So, for example, in a lesbian relationship, if you have a partner who is more masculine appearing and presenting, that partner is expected to fulfill these heterosexual normative roles like taking out the trash or supporting the family, etc. While the feminine presenting one is expected to be, the girl in the relationship. And I found that to be ironic when I very first started exploring the queer space, because as someone who was forced to shape myself in the straight community, I found it very interesting how so much of the straight community is internalized in queer people and then acted out. For example, I see a video of a woman who is a lesbian and she's, she's got her shoulders all puffed out and she's speaking all loudly about how, our femmes want us to support the family and they want us to do this and do that. And you're supposed to take care of your family. You're supposed to, and it's like, I thought that we were escaping that environment. Instead, those masculine norms have been internalized and they are in turn ruling how lesbians are in relationships with each other. There are whole groups around it, judging masculine presenting women for not behaving like men. And then when those masculine presenting women are out in the world, they are then pressured by men. Why are you trying to be like a man? You're a woman. Why, or feminine women, why do you want a masculine woman? Why don't you just be with a man? And so there's all of these misconceptions going around. And I think it's a little bit sad because it's the same type of internalization that occurs in women. And I don't just mean lesbian or bisexual women, just women in general who internalize sexism, women who think that they are only good for being the support of a man, and that her identity is not enough independently on her own, but that she must be defined by how modest she is and how she serves her husband and what type of a mother she is. And her desire to be useful to society is minimized and seen as less important than her ability to procreate. Or men's internalization of the patriarchy is actually harmful to them as well. Men know that they don't want to be placed into a particular box. I saw a young man on a video talking about, I'll work 2 and 3 jobs, that my woman doesn't have to work. She can go get her nails done and she can take care of our kids and she can do whatever she wants. I'm the one who brings in the money. I have 2 sons. I don't agree with that at all. Like, one partner in the relationship is supposed to bear the brunt of breadwinning while the other partner does whatever they want. It just doesn't seem fair. So we know all these things are not fair, but somehow we've internalized them. We know they're problematic, and yet we still measure ourselves by these problematic things. No longer fitting inside of an old framework, whether it be a woman who has been hiding her attraction to other women, whether it's the straight male who would rather stay home and be with his children and allow his wife to be the breadwinner, but he doesn't admit it because it makes him less of a man or something like that. All of those things are examples of how we know somewhere inside of us that what we're doing doesn't fit, but we haven't moved to the next stage or phase of meaning making. And so what we then begin to realize or tell ourselves is that I don't know who I am anymore. Like, if you can't name yourself, then you don't exist. So then we place all these labels on ourselves. We're not allowed to be fluid. We have to be one thing. Without that role, you become undefined. Without the masculine lesbian label, who are you? You don't exist. Like, if you're not the feminine woman in a straight relationship, you feel like you have to be the masculine woman in a lesbian relationship instead of just being 2 women existing in a relationship. Or if I am undefined, I'm vulnerable to being overlooked or overridden. So a straight woman feeling like she must define herself as a stay-at-home mom or as a supportive wife or as the ball buster who doesn't want to have kids. Um, it's like you can't simply just be a woman living. You have to decide what label is you. Naming these sort of internal conclusions, anytime you come to a point to where you're labeling yourself and you decided that you must fit into this thing, you've already missed the point entirely. Like, you've already gotten to the point where you're limiting yourself beyond how society has limited you. I mean, we're born into families, we're born into societies, and the smaller unit is always expected to shape itself within the larger unit. The individual is expected to shape themselves within the family it's born in. The family is expected to shape itself within the society that it emerges in. And the society is expected to shape itself within the greater. So as the smallest unit being just like a person, you're being pressed on from all sides. And then when that pressure begins to enter and you begin to internalize those pressures, that's when you begin to label yourself. Well, I am this. Well, I am that. I'm not that, but I'm this over here. And it's better to be this instead of being that. And we're not understanding really that what has actually changed inside of us, or what is actually occurring here, is that a meaning structure really has completed its function. Something ended. Like, that structure that once provided direction, worth, certainty, or belonging no longer does. So, for example, the woman who realizes that she's only been in relationships with men because her family told her that she would go to hell if she did anything else. Or the man who has always felt pretty domestic, has always been the breadwinner simply because his dad told him that's how you be a man. Or the masculine lesbian who thinks that she has to be the sort of pseudo male in the relationship is really just an internalized structure from her family telling her that marriage is for a man and a woman. And so she feels like she has to be the man because the other person in the relationship is a woman. Once that reaches its end and it's no longer useful, then we begin to spin and we're unsure of who we are. So that meaning structure used to organize the choices that we made, our behavior, and it was effective for a while. The structure didn't fail, though, just is finished. It lived its usefulness. For example, if the structure of being has run its course and now you feel like you don't know who you are, it's not so much that you don't know who you are, it's that the meaning that allowed you to access your life has fallen and you now have to build a new structure. If you no longer feel like your career is fulfilling, it's not that you don't know who you are. It's just that this scaffold through which you built your life collapsed and now you have to build a new scaffold. The life is still there. The building is still there. You just have to rebuild how you access and organize and build that life. So it's kind of like on a construction site, right? So you've got the building that's being erected. And then if it's a very large building, you have scaffolding around it because you need to be able to access this very large structure. And so you build that scaffolding. But if that scaffolding fails and falls, you find yourself back down next to the foundation. Now, what you've built so far is still there. You just have to rebuild the scaffolding that allows you to access that life in a different way. And so, for example, if you're a teacher who's no longer feeling the same about your career, in the beginning, when you first became a teacher, maybe it was the perfect thing for you at that time because it helped you to take care of your family and it helped to regulate your schedule. But the kids grow up and they move out and now you're like, so why am I still teaching? Why am I still doing this? Maybe teaching has taught you everything you need to be taught about yourself, and now there's time for a new adventure. Maybe when you move away from your family and you no longer need to perform life the way that pleases them, then what do? You have to build new scaffolding. You have to build new meaning, and you are who you are. It's just how you access your life is what has begun to shift. And so what this stage is commonly mistaken for is I've lost something important to me, or the spark is just gone, or I need to get back to who I was. We need to bring back the old thing. And what people kind of try to do here is reignite, recreate, or replace the old meaning too quickly because they don't realize that discomfort is not loss. It is a lag between structure and identity. And so as we're in that lag, structure and identity between structure and identity, and we're very uncomfortable, we try to recreate what we lost, which is kind of defeating the purpose of that thing passing away. And it's sort of like attempting to step back into a shoe that you've already outgrown. So maybe you go back to performing straightness, or you go back to being the breadwinner, even though that's not where your heart is. Or you go back to that career that no longer fulfills you because that's all you know. And you think, all I need to really do is just find that spark again. Or even in a long-term relationship, we need to get that spark back. And it's not to say that you need to throw the relationship away, but it is to say that the old relationship is no longer there and a new one has to be acknowledged. Like it's never going to be the way that it was. I mean, that's like nothing is ever going to be the way that it was. Not your career, not your relationship, not the way that you used to parent. The kids are never going to be babies again. That career is never going to be new again. That relationship is never going to be new and exciting in the exact same way again. Nothing is ever going to be the same. And when you acknowledge that, it feels like something has died because it has, but that's okay because death is a part of life. And I don't remember who said this, but someone said, I don't know if it came from the Bible, we must die every day. Every day that you wake up, you're not who you were yesterday. It's just that we don't really notice it because it changes so incrementally until one day the shoes just fucking don't fit anymore. And so this stage affects your identity very deeply. The part of me that knew where satisfaction came from is now undefined. The part of me that knew where my satisfaction came from, where my contentment came from, is now undefined. What attracted me to my partner no longer exists. What attracted me to this career no longer exists. Like, for example, I'm a teacher. I've taught for over 10 years. I'm approaching year 11. I started teaching because I had to. And it was the first career that I had that helped me to feel creative. I chose it. I had to qualify for it. And I enjoyed a certain level of agency and creative autonomy. And of course, teaching is very meaningful. You get to be in the lives of children in a very structured and yet meaningful way. But over time, things have changed. you put so much in and you don't really get anything directly back. Like I remember many students that I've had, and I don't know how their lives are going. I don't know what long-term effects I've had on them, or even if they're still like alive, you know? And then other things weigh on you, the process, administrative rules and things that no one in the building is able to control. And you begin to feel like you're just playing some role because the type of effect that you want to have on children and their learning and their ability to think is hampered by the system. And then you realize that you are that system. And so I'm no longer satisfied by what I do. The self image of I know who I am and what I want is no longer held in place. And so you can apply that to your career, you can apply that to your relationship, and you can decide to allow things to be redefined, or you can decide to move on altogether. My internal compass spins because it's still calibrated to an expired system. And it doesn't mean that you have to change everything. You don't have to leave your partner. You don't have to find a new career. You don't have to do any of that, but you have to build a new scaffolding around that life. You have to build new meaning around it. It's no longer this brand new career that helps me to feel useful. Maybe now it's a career that I keep in spite of feeling like I'm not really compensated well, but I allow what I do to satisfy me and realize that I can't really know the long-term effects of how I affected the thousands of children that I've taught, or the relationship doesn't look the same, and that's okay. But I choose loyalty and continuity over newness because the reality is that it's hard to find people who you know really have your back. Or maybe things have run their course and it's time for a change. That's how this stage really affects your identity. You begin to question everything. Where is my satisfaction going to come from? Where is my contentment? And so it's important to understand that this stage signals successful completion and not failure. It does not mean I lack desire or direction. It means meaning must be reassigned before identity can stabilize again. The scaffolding has dropped away, but the building remains. The life remains accessible. New structure is required to reach it. So that need to convince yourself that you're straight doesn't exist anymore. That need to define yourself as a good teacher or a good accountant or a good whatever, fill in the blank, no longer exists. That need to be a good parent of small children, to forego social relationships in order to spend good time with your kids and to be there for them in the way that they need it, that no longer exists when they move out. That's successful completion. So when my children move out, I've had 2 fly the nest so far. Of course, there's sadness in that, but also there is success in that because the whole point was to contribute useful, good human beings to society. And I believe I have done that. And I'm still doing that. I'm still parenting. I'm just not parenting small children who depend on me as much as they did. And in my career now, I've reached a different stage where do I still want to do this? Do I not still want to do this? What do I want? What else in my life have I desired? And I put those things off because the shape of my life just didn't fit at that time. And can I maybe do those things now? Successful completion. So the old framework did its duty, it did its job, and now it's time to build a new framework, a new way of life. And so the thing that is important to understand is that you don't have to redefine meaning right now, all at once in one moment. Meaning is built brick by brick, step by step. New meaning is not defined in one episode or one day or one moment or one loss. This phase is simply for recognition, not full construction. Premature meaning just leads to creating hollow identities. So it's important to simply be here in this transitional moment where you know that the old meaning isn't there anymore and the new meaning is on its way. And you are right here in the middle, building, breathing, and just allowing the breath to carry the next inspiration toward you, believing, like truly believing that that new inspiration is coming. And so I think it can be comfortable to realize that old meaning has fallen away and new meaning is on its way. So when you feel like you're spinning and you feel like you don't know who you are and you feel like you don't know what to do, just remember that old meaning has fallen away and new meaning is on its way. And when you don't know what to do, be still because I am, and everything else is additional.